Welcome to the Directing Animation Livecast with Scott Weiser. Now that I'm done directing the development and first episode of the second series of Space Station Animation, I'm joining up with Steamroller Animation to push the boundaries of the art form. Thanks to the support of so many of you, I'm continually developing more than 10 dynamic feature film pitches while mastering the art of telling deeply meaningful stories. Today's guest is the wonderful Chris Oatley, a man who fills my heart with joy. Let me tell you a bit of background about Chris and I. I met him several years ago. It was more than 10 years ago at CTNX. And at the time, he was a Disney character designer, and he was selected to do Disney portfolio reviews. So besides those two qualifications, which were very impressive, I went and looked at his website and found this entrepreneurial spirit that he had. And he was working on all these kinds of things. And I thought, this is the kind of guy I want to be in the industry. So I kept following Chris as he created a podcast called the Paper Wings Podcast, a podcast that was meant to help visual storytellers better tell their stories. He already had the ArtCast, which grew in popularity and put his name on the map as the character designer at the top of Google, the Disney character designer at the top of Google. But eventually, his career took a surprising turn. And I think the reason for this is because at CTNX, you have some people who have these long lines at their tables at CTNX. And oftentimes they're like the guy who directed Lilo and Stitch, or there's somebody that, has a lot of impact. And you would have a line around around your table, but it was because of the kinds of critiques you would give and the helpful advice you would give. And it seems like those two things started to collide, your love for animation and your love for teaching and helping people, and you created Oatley Academy, a wonderful school that I took several courses in, and your students go on to do amazing, remarkable things. You have students who are working at Blizzard, Wizards of the Coast. I've directed at a studio, and now I'm a supervising animator at Steamroller Animation, and I mean the list goes on and on and on. You have published authors, author illustrators, and anything else you'd like to add to that intro?
I don't know how I would add anything to that. That's director of the Scott Weiser fan club. That's an important credit.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. That's very generous.
Yeah, thank you. And it's taken me a while. Chris actually helped inspire the Directing Animation Livecast. I think you were the first one to even suggest it. I had other ideas of things I wanted to create, but when you showed me the power of what this show could do and what it could be, not only for my career, but to build and do good things in the industry, it was a no-brainer. I had to do it. At that time, we talked about having on the show, but I couldn't quite see how it fits. Now I see absolutely how it fits. Being a director is being a teacher. And I've met a lot of educators. Yeah. I love education. I've got several degrees, and so I have a passion for that. And I have yet to come across a better educator than you. There are people who kind of sit up at your level, but I think that you have a different approach than most educators that I've seen in the world to how you teach your students. And I think that will impact the industry as well. It will change the kinds of people who get into the industry and their mindset with the art we're creating in the industry. Can you speak to that at all? The flattery, that's very nice. To your philosophy nice and the kind of the impact you hope to have on the industry.
Well, I mean, I started my first podcast in 2007. Started envisioning it, and then I think we launched the first episode. And I think the first episode was in the fall of 2007, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And I just remember I was trying to create the resource that I wished I'd had when I was trying to break in. After breaking into animation, specifically, I was at Disney at the time. Yeah, I was just like, there's just so many things that people don't talk about, but there's no reason to not talk about them. It's not like, some sort of concealed thing. There's just, I don't understand why this information isn't more readily available. And so I went to create that. And then it was through the sort of feedback loop of, people responding to, I guess the way I sort of present and the my value system kind of vis-a-vis professionalism and optimism, and these kinds of things, empowerment, I think, it was through that feedback loop that I really started to develop a relationship. And I mean, of course, developed many non-parasocial relationships, actual relationships with lots and lots of people who listen to the show, that I just started to realize, I guess that's when the mantra really stared to form. And we have several mantras at the Oatley Academy, but one of them is, if we're not changing lives, we're not doing our job. And I think educators, sort of, well, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a non-negotiable. If you're going to be an educator, if you're going to have an educational institution, your job is transformation, and not negative transformation. I mean, a lot of educational institutions do that, right? They go and they transform their students' lives by way of ill preparing them for, whatever industry they want to work in, and, burdening them with this tremendous amount of debt.
Yeah.
That's not a good kind of transformation. When we say, if we're not, if lives aren't transforming, we're not doing our jobs, then that education should be synonymous with transformation. We mean, obviously a positive, self-actualizing, empowering kind of transformation. And so I think that just started to come through the relationship. People would say that all the time, especially back at the beginning. They would say, Chris, it's so cool, this community that you've created.
Yeah.
And I would always say, I didn't create the community. One person can't create a community. A community is created by the community, right? A community creates itself.
I love that. So, one person does not create a community.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cult, right? It's like one person creating a community is a cult. That's weird. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I know there have been jokes sometimes at Oatley Academy. I remember Laura Ennis was like, I hope we don't start having Kool-Aid around or something like that, because it was feeling like this extra energy. But those of us who stuck around for a while saw, this isn't a cult. This isn't Chris dictating what we're going to do. This is the whole community is deciding, like, this is what we're interested in. And you're like, maybe I could create a course for that, and it's been a wonderful experience. And also, I've been in lots of online academy type of situations, and it's been the one where the community stays together. The community stays connected. Whenever we see each other at Lightbox or CTNX, we're so excited, and we pick up as if we never left each other's, sides. And it's
the
a wonderful
diaspora.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, that's the thing, is that you want it, like, a community needs to be empowering. It needs to be affirming of the individual. Something my my dad, both my parents are very, very good teachers. They both taught in public school, both in music, various specializations, but both in music though. And my dad says, teach the student first and the subject second. It has to be about the individual. And if you're, expecting your pedagogy, your curriculum to be a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, then you've already failed. You've already failed. It's about the individual, and it's about the individual's goals and aspirations, their values, their nose, not their nose, their nose, N-O''S,
things they don't want to do.
Their kind of hard nose, right? Anyway, help me out here, Scott. I'm trying to make sure I'm clear. But, it has to be about the empowerment of the individual. And then it's through empowering individuals and helping them feel, just more equipped and more clear-eyed about what, and more ready and more confident about the kind of career that they want to have. Then oftentimes relationship comes from that. Yeah. And, and we're just fortunate that, oftentimes people who enroll in our courses, they come back for more courses. Yeah. Which is, hopefully if you're running a business, that's happening. People are coming back to your business. And so we're fortunate in that's the case. I don't know if I'm making any sense though.
You're making a lot of sense.
Let's communally create the point here.
Yeah. And this idea of, to recap what you said, the favorite thing I think I heard you say was that to teach everybody exactly the same with the same approach, and you're like, I've got the perfect plan of how I'm going to teach every single person the same. At that point, you failed. The opposite of that is that it's custom tailored. You have a base curriculum, but that you can customize it to each person. That does sound like a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
It sounds incredibly challenging. If there was somebody who was interested in becoming that sort of educator, what approach would you recommend?
Well, I mean, I know it worked for me. It was, and in my case, I had two parents who were, go the extra mile educators for their students, and again, in public school. But almost everything I learned about teaching, I learned from my parents. And I actually talked about this recently. We're doing a free course on our newest website. It's called the project is called Room 2, but the URL is howtobecomeaprofessionalartist.com. And at that website, I just realized now how confusing this is. So at that website, at howtobecomeaprofessionalartist.com, you can get this course called You're a Better Artist Than You Think for free.
Yeah, amazing course.
Thank you.
Linked down in the show notes too. So.
Oh right, yes, you linked that. Yeah, thank you for that. There's a lesson 1.3 in that course. I think it's 1.3. I tell a lot of my own personal story, and in there I tell some of these stories about my parents, but one in particular that I will reiterate here is that, it was like a weekly occurrence. I think usually on Monday nights, if I remember correctly, where, my parents would come home from teaching, and then we'd have dinner, and then they would get on the phone and they would call every single parent of every single student. And I mean, this is U.S. public school system. I mean, my parents, and because they're in music, they've got like all the kids, right?
Right.
And they would call every single parent, and they would go in these groups, and they just had this routine of calling through their lists of every single parent and checking in. I mean, very frequently. I don't know how often it was for each individual parent or guardian or set of parents or whatever the situation was, and just call. It wasn't like, I have to call the parents, we have a problem. It wasn't like that. It was, here's how Scott's doing. We had this great, just a check-in update. How's it going? How are things at home? And it just like really taking an interest in, the whole family. And so I think that that was just huge, just seeing how much my parents cared before they were retired, and how they continue to care even well into their retirement. And then I tried for the first time teaching public school 2 years ago, and so I was an adjunct teacher at a middle school in my hometown. And that's a long story. I like telling that story, but I don't want to get off track. My point is I was witnessing this firsthand now as part of the staff, and working with middle school kids, and it was just an amazing year. It was an amazing year, and I learned so much. I thought I knew some things about teaching, and then I went and spent a year with this staff at this middle school I taught at, and again, just in a way, kind of like you must unlearn all that you've learned. Just seeing how wholeheartedly these teachers were committed to their students. Just absolutely mind-blowing, just to see how they knew every single detail of what was going on with their students, in terms of in educational terms, and also just in their lives. I mean, just seeing how, we would be in staff meetings and someone's just in tears because they have a student who's just having an extraordinarily difficult time. And this teacher is just wrung out because they just love their students so much. They just want the pain to go away. you know,
Exactly.
very parental, right, in that way. So anyway, I could go on and on, but I mean, I think that the short answer to your question is get around good teachers.
Yeah.
You got to get around good teachers, and not just other people who paint digitally well, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what they're teaching.
Hmm.
You know, we get so caught up in this idea in the commercial arts spaces. We get so caught up on this, you know, well, this person is a really good painter. I can't wait to take their class. And it's like, well, maybe they suck as a teacher,
Yeah.
right? And the problem with a bad teacher is that it might not be just a benign, well, I wish I had spent my time and money elsewhere kind of situation. It could actually be damaging. You know, you open
Yeah.
yourself up in this vulnerable way, like that could just really go really, really poorly.
I could.
And so, and so I think that, yeah, get, you know, we have to, if you're gonna sort of step into that, you know, and I'm not a religious person, but I think of the classroom as sacred, you know, in a non-religious way. You know, I think
Hmm.
of it as sacred, and but that's the best word I can think of to describe how I think how important I think a classroom is.
Yeah.
If you're going to step into there and to not have, you know, given that space in that position all the respect and consideration it deserves, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I think get around really good teachers and look how really good teachers do it. Look how they respect the classroom.
Yeah.
And everyone has, you know, everyone's has to have time to try and fail and grow. I mean, that's like any job,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to be able to, you know, you have to be able to fail, and that's the amazing thing about, of course, having if you're in a situation where you've got a staff around you that can support you, um, then you know you can maybe look forward to failure even more than if you're
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your own, where it's
Exactly.
really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
if I'm not making sense at any point, you just tell me.
No, you were
Just,
making sense, and there are some things that I want to connect together with the story of an experience I had with you, where you've mentioned once, you said that sometimes you have to unlearn things, that sometimes when you have a bad teacher, that isn't just a benign thing, it actually could cause problems in the future. And I remember seeing a student of yours that I'd seen their artwork before, and all of a sudden they were just creating this artwork that I was blown away by. I thought, this is almost a different artist. And I remember praising you for it, and your response I felt was really golden. And you said, all I did was clear the path,
mm,
is what you said. So I envisioned you with your teaching method as you were just taking all these lessons they've learned that aren't
yeah,
helpful and saying, here's how you can actually get to your goal in a more streamlined way, in a more constructive way. And having the path clear, this artist was suddenly free to create the kind of art that they've always wanted to create. And that was
yeah, and be the
remarkable.
best, right? Be the best version of themselves. Well, and to back up, I'm sort of like yes anding now, but thank you.
It's fine.
That's encouraging
Yeah.
to hear. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's my, you know, one of my major roles uh, at the school is, yeah, just clearing the path. Students come in just with, you know, I say you're full of should. You're full of
Although
should.
should. Okay.
You know, we're just full of should, right? I should do this. I should do that. I should be doing more of this. I'm not enough,
Yeah.
right? I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. And students are just burdened. They're just weighed down, and they've just got this pile of should that they're carrying around.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's usually the first year is just us sort of sorting through that and going, what do you feel like is relevant?
Yeah.
You know, well, I don't know what's relevant. Why don't you know what's relevant? Well, because I don't know where I'm going. Okay, well, let's figure out where you want to go first.
Yeah.
Then we'll figure out what's relevant. Then we'll sort through what you actually should be doing, which is maybe one or two things. You know, like with repetition and clarity and drive and determination, but also with the confidence that comes from knowing that this time that I'm investing in this development of this skill or promoting this project or whatever is relevant to where I want to go with my life.
Yeah, you don't want to spend
You
years
know?
climbing a ladder to find out that you've been climbing the wrong ladder, right? When you get to the
Oh
top
yeah,
of it.
and this happens,
It
right?
does.
This happens
It
to
does.
people. I mean,
Yeah.
I hear this. I won't say I hear it all the time, but I wouldn't say it's uncommon either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this actually really ties in well to your course, your free course of how to save your art career. That's the whole point of it, is you need to know whether this ladder is really the ladder you want to climb. Is this really the thing you would do day in and day out through even boredom to try to accomplish? Well, then if not, you need to pick a different ladder to climb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd
love to hear some experiences from students that surprised you. Just certain students. You don't even have to name them by name. We can call them student A had this situation and then this happened. Or if it's somebody you want to call them by name, that's fine too, because you have a lot who've been successful and are positive influences on the industry as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think my students surprise me all the time. I mean, it's like it's a weekly occurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the great things about being a teacher and being actually invested in your students' lives, I think, is that you just get your, it's just full of surprises. I mean, you're just constantly getting surprised. You're constantly having to improvise. You're constantly having to adapt. It's a constant challenge. And, I love it. I mean, I think my students surprise me in how, well, I don't know if surprise is the right word, because I mean, another mantra we have is knowledge is created in the classroom, not bestowed from the platform.
Yeah.
Right. It's not this sort of like weird, things, especially since the advent of social media, things do, like you were making that joke about cultiness of the way educators often are viewed, and that is true. Like it is, and this was even before influencers were a thing, even before that whole kind of thing. There was still a lot of spaces where it was really weird. There was this, and still is, this weird idol worship that happens with people who are kind of in an educational or a motivational space, and it's really, really strange. It's this very weird kind of rock star disproportionate kind of thing. And so we always try to always return to this space of knowledge is created in the classroom, not bestowed from the platform. So in other words, we create knowledge together here in this educational institution. That's what educational institutions should do, ideally, right?
Yeah.
It's not like how in the world is it an educational institution if it's just one person standing on a platform going, again, here, you should let me just show off with all my smart things, or whatever.
Is that part of the reason?
Usually not smart things. Usually they're didactic and absolute, and these like dichotomous sort of absolute statements.
Always do this, never do this.
Yeah, exactly. It's
that kind of thing.
So intense and dogmatic.
Yeah.
It's so weird. As artists, we're supposed to be these purveyors of subtlety and nuance, and yet give an artist a microphone, and then give an artist a microphone. All of a sudden, there's this dogmatic, sort of intense dogmatic, taskmaster.
And that's possibly because we're so good. Like, we're good at doing it when we're actually in the craft. We're good at being that open, nuanced explorer. But then perhaps in situations that, like speaking, all of a sudden there's a nervousness there, and there's like, okay, how have I seen this?
All the answers.
I've seen this done before, so I've got to be able to deliver like Tony Robbins or any other guru on self-help. And that's interesting. I like that.
I do think that's what happens. We psych ourselves out. But anyway, getting back to the surprise thing. So knowledge is created in the classroom. So I'll just take a recent example, since it happens all the time. Just this past weekend, I teach my mentorship, which is called the Clockwork Heart. I teach that on Fridays and Saturdays, and so I was having class on both. We do the same thing on Friday and Saturday, so it's two different groups. And we had this prompt where we're right now we're in the middle of a series where we're working on networking, and all these different ways that you can network. And we talked about and in fact you came in, Scott, and talked about this platform here. You talked about that and about how it's helped your career, and we've had a lot of examples of how you can create a platform that does some of your networking for you. Right. It sort of works on its own, even though it's a lot of work. Like what you do here is a lot of work, but it also can create this exponential, web of opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about that. And so we did this exercise where they went into breakout rooms. So that's on Zoom. You can put people into smaller,
Yeah,
you know,
break
we
them
have
off.
everybody in the big classroom on the Zoom session, but then we break out into smaller breakout rooms. And they took time to basically pick an interest that is not related to art. So it's not something that's going to be career based, just something fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have picked music or something like that, or dogs, you know, just something that I am really interested in that I'm not going to be pursuing a career in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all picked one of those. So a non art, like something not related to your career, but a topic that you know something about and that you've got some experience in.
Yeah.
And so they all got together, and this was actually, this was just just groups of two. Usually when we do breakout rooms it's like four people, but 4 or 5, but this was just groups of two. And then the assignment was, so if you and I were in a breakout room together,
Yeah.
the assignment then is and let's say yours is musical theater, right? So then I have to design, and it's hypothetical, it's just for fun, but I have to design sort of a fantasy um, platform for you to start a career in musical theater.
That's cool.
So we go through all the ways, well, we think through all the ways, okay, how has musical theater
Yeah.
launched career? How have
I'm
people
still
launched
listening.
careers in musical theater? And I sure hope you're coming back with like a hat and cane and you're gonna perform
No, the
a song
furnace was
for
on
me,
and it was driving me nuts.
a song and dance. Um, I was like, but this is the perfect cue for some musical theater from Scott. It's what just
Ba-da-da-da-da.
happening. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That was exactly what I had in mind, actually. Um, and so what was I saying? Oh, yeah, right. So then I would have to then design for
Oh,
you,
that's interesting.
you know, so it then separates it yet another degree because we get so close to our
Yeah.
careers, you know, that we just can't see clearly. And so the idea is let's get some distance and let's practice on a topic that is a just for fun, and it's just to go through the mechanics of thinking through what makes a platform work, what would make a platform work for me personally, like what would be a good fit for me personally, and this kind of thing. And so some of the answers that people came back with were just absolutely amazing. And
Yeah.
but on both nights people were saying, oh yeah, I think I'm just going to abandon this whole art thing and go start this whole other career with this. And not literally, we were joking, they're not actually going to do that,
Right. Yeah.
but you know, one of my students and friends, Matthew Cook, who you also know, Scott,
Mm-hmm.
he really is interested in the paranormal. And
Uh-huh.
so his breakout room partner, um, Kim Lampers, who's a fantastic author, she designed for Matthew this traveling podcast where Matthew would go into towns with ghost stories and then interview the people. I'm just getting chills just thinking about how
Oh,
cool
that
this
is so
is, you know?
cool.
So she's like, yeah, so you'll drive from town to town and you'll kind of, you know, live out of Airstream trailer or something like
Yeah.
this. And you'll interview the town people about and get all these angles on the ghost story and maybe go and actually go through the location where the goat that's supposedly haunted and these kinds of things. I was just like, that is so awesome. What an awesome. Now take that same energy and creativity and you know, kind of innovation, and now apply that to your what you're going to do with your career. And
Yeah.
also if you want to start a ghost podcast or whatever, then go do it.
Go
But
ahead and do it.
you know, this kind of thing.
Maybe that can connect to your writing or whatever, or your
Yeah.
art,
So and it was just like
So
one after another of these amazing ideas. Uh yeah. Yeah, a Chillhop Meetup. Craig Russell and Melquia Smith were came up with this idea to do a Chillhop Meetup, like basically a Discord channel where people could get together and have sort of share, because Chillhop is sort of like overwhelming in how much there is out there,
yeah.
and share recommendations essentially.
Mm.
Um, and I could just go on and on, but anyway, it was just the best, and we just had the best time. We were
Yeah.
laughing and just having this great time, but it's also really insightful.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like this all the time. I mean, they're just a, you know, constant source of, you know, creativity and inspiration. And
Yeah, and
that's why,
that really harkens back to what you said about, the discovery, the education happens in the classroom. It doesn't happen with the pre-recorded lecture. Even when you you come with these really amazing plans when you create your lectures, but when they're in front of the classroom, suddenly it's like they take on this new life. And that sounds like the perfect example of that kind of activity, where it's
so
designed to create discoveries. It's designed to create education opportunities that the community is creating together.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Knowledge is created in the classroom, not bestowed from the platform.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's speak a bit broader in terms of now, I know that you just how you are, you don't want to speak negatively of things. So I don't know that this question should lead us there. It should lead us more toward like the positive potential.
Sure.
But overall, broadly in the industry, one of the reasons I created the Directing Animation Livecast was to make the industry a better place to work for artists, right? And a lot of it was built on things I'd heard you say on the ArtCast and on the Paper Wings podcast. How far do you think we've advanced up until now on the industry as a good place to work? And where do you think we should go if we want to make it a successful and still meaningful place to work?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't necessarily think it's better than it was when I was breaking in back in 2007. I don't think it's necessarily better. I think there are certain things that are better, and I think there are certain things that are not. There's and then obviously there are things that we thought were fine or we're not thinking about that have all come out, and we realize, oh, actually it was hell on earth.
That wasn't fine. Yeah.
20 years or what, like it's just been like really bad, like really, really bad. I mean, speaking, for example, to Disney, I generally always felt like Disney was a pretty good place to work. And I mean, obviously there are things kind of corporately I really disagree with. I think they make way too many Marvel movies and on and on. I mean, it's, I could complain about that kind of thing, but it's it's interesting. We get shocked when in an industry is industrial.
I know.
It's like, well,
I know.
I mean,
it's called an industry.
It is called an industry.
Yeah.
That's why I think you've got to have your own things. But leverage the resume power that comes from working at a place like that, and then do your own stuff. But so I don't think it's kind of an unquantifiable thing, but I think that there are dynamics that are better, and that even that's all relative, right? So I think it's generally it seems like studios, at least as far as I can tell, being a freelancer, I'm not in-house anymore. I only freelance, so that is obviously its own kind of myopic, almost literally myopic thing. But I mean, it seems like studios are, I mean, we've said this before, right? But it seems like they're making a more of a push for inclusivity and diversity, and I mean, that seems like that's more on the radar now. So that, I hope is, I hope I'm reading that accurately as better,
hopefully,
than it was.
Yeah.
But I could go on all day, like you said. I don't want to just, talk trash. But there's this, there's this thing where it's like, yeah, but is the problem that we're not doing enough, or is the problem that we just should have been doing the right thing for the last 100 years? It's like we wouldn't be in this problem if we had paid attention to it 60, 70 years ago, or whenever whenever was the time at which growth was happening.
And then on the flip side, sometimes progress just for the sake of progress isn't actually moving us to where we want to be either. So
well, like Disney Plus or something. I mean, just sort of more is not better. Yeah. Right. We don't
sometimes
need more Star Wars.
We try to certain groups will try to progress in something and realize too late sometimes that the thing they were trying to push was actually not the thing that was going to help them long term. And we've seen examples of that throughout history, not even just in the entertainment industry, but yeah. So there's this dynamic.
Right.
There's this need. It seems like a need for balance.
Yeah. It's like we don't. Yeah. There's this huge push, right, to get more. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Disney. I think there's. Well, I mean, I have no idea. What sometimes their behavior seems to signify to me that they're kind of afraid of Netflix, or
Yeah.
whatever, afraid of the destabilization of and I would be too, quite frankly, if I were in charge, which I would never want to be. If I
Yeah.
were in charge there, I would be too afraid of that. But it's this thing where it's so then we just keep pushing out content, which is good for jobs, right? It's good
Yeah.
for jobs, but it's I mean, if that eventually leads to this sort of like massive hiring, massive layoffs, massive hiring, if it creates more instability overall, like you're saying, I don't know if that is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, getting back to what the topic was, there was something cogent that I wanted to, or at least I thought it was cogent, that I did want to say. And that is that I think that as we have sort of, and I mean, there's exceptions all over the place. But I think as we have lost touch with the craft of storytelling, and as movies and streaming have become less story first and more about product first or logo first or
Toys.
personality, like you've got this famous personality first or whatever it is, the tail wags the dog situation, that's a race to the bottom. And that's and so we end up with this sort of like photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy kind of experience where we just totally forget how to tell a story. And everybody should go read Invisible Ink by Brian McDonald.
Oh, yes.
Start there.
I have thought of him many times.
Yeah.
One of those,
and then
things
read,
that, oh, sorry. I'll say after.
Read Invisible Ink, listen to everything Brian does, and then hire him to come fix your movie. I'm saying that will solve your problem.
Yeah.
Like that will solve your problem. If you just hire Brian McDonald and actually listen to him.
Yes.
Actually listen to him and
trick.
put into the we get addicted to process in animation. We get so addicted to process. And I was just talking about Marvel and Star Wars and these kinds of things, and those are not the animation industry. I mean, there are animated things with those, but we get so addicted to our own process. We went, well, Toy Story 2 was a total disaster and we fixed it in a weekend. And so then the lesson we take from that though is every movie needs to be a disaster before we can fix it in the 11th hour.
Yeah.
And then you end up with, like, I don't know if you've seen that Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus, but it's like we get in this thing where it's like now every movie has to be a disaster, and we're like, but it's like, guys, that's not the magic formula.
No.
Oh, when I came up with the Oscar-winning idea, I was leaning against this doorpost and I had my hand, I think I had it on my head, and I was chewing gum, and I was wearing this shirt. So if I just do all those things, that'll make the movie good. It's like, no, that's not, that's not what made Toy Story 2 good. It wasn't the disaster in the 11th hour save that made it good.
Yeah.
It's simplicity and thematic focus. That's what makes it good.
Yeah, the brilliant thing about Brian McDonald's approach is that he has learned so much about so many masters' craft that he knows several ways in to fixing it, which is brilliant. And he actually said the other day, and this is on Progress, that he said every time there's a technological innovation, something major is gained and something major is lost. And we're so excited for the new technological advancements, but at the same time, I think we all have to stop and say, what are we losing here? The same can apply with your analogy of this is how we make a film, right? We make a film by creating a disaster, and in the 11th hour we save it. Well, that's an innovation, but something major is gained and something major is lost. Yeah. And we should be wise about our approach. We just be careful of learning the wrong lesson. Hollywood learns the wrong lesson all the time. They constantly learn the wrong lesson, and it's like, anyway, we're here to talk about education, but and making the industry a better place. So this really does apply.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if the industry is a better place. I think probably it's a, just up to the, you just have to survey a lot of animation industry employees and to even get something close to, you know, quantifying that.
Yeah.
But do I think that there's lots? Yes, I think there are thousands of people working in the animation industry and the entertainment industry more broadly
Hmm.
that are striving to continually make it a better place. I think that is true.
Yeah.
I think that, and especially in animation, I think that the people working on the movies and TV shows
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to be making Star Wars episode 964,
Right.
Um, they want to be, but anyway, I'm not to pick on Star Wars.
Star Wars is
It's
wonderful.
it's a mindset. It's a
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
Well, it was wonderful. I mean, there were
Well,
there were two wonderful Star Wars movies. Um, New Hope and Empire.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, but I don't remember what I was even saying. What am I getting at? I do think that there are lots of people striving to make it better. I think that, I mean, we could go super. I mean, we can get into capitalism.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can
Yeah. We could
get
get in
into
all
all
kinds of
kinds of
places.
problems.
Yeah.
It's like there's these systemic issues. There are just the basis of capitalism is problematic just to begin with. So
Hmm.
what is better? And I'm not trying to be vague. I just don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how you
It's
would.
hard, and it's good to have that
Yeah.
kind of honesty because we think that there could be something better, and that it might be nice to break it down and try to build something new. But how can you guarantee it actually will be better? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you hear that a lot, right? You hear a lot of this kind of thing. Oh, I'm going to reinvent the animation industry, or I'm going out on my own,
Yeah.
and everybody, I mean, Pixar did that successfully for a while, and
Hmm.
then they've, kind of, I feel like they've kind of lost their way in general. But but all of a sudden, did I just say that on a live? So yes, I guess I did. I mean, but I think that's generally true. It just feels a little bit like, yeah, this is just, we've lost. There's so much franchise.
Yeah, there was a
There's just,
day
I mean,
when a trailer would come out for that, and even a film like Ratatouille, which I absolutely loved, I saw the trailer and thought I wasn't gonna like it. But I was like, it's
mhm,
Pixar. There's something that just gets me into that theater,
mhm.
and obviously it's one of my favorite films of theirs, and yeah, so to say that's missing is very true in a lot of audience
Yeah,
members.
yeah. I mean, a lot of it's franchise, but I'm not. I want to be careful that I'm not just talking about franchises. It's not just. It's just that franchise is an easy
Ah, yes,
example.
yes, that's true.
It's not just franchise. I mean, it's all kinds of issues. Because
Yeah,
again, what is better, right? I mean, are we talking about better stories? Well, no, I don't think we're telling. Generally speaking, I don't think we're telling better stories. Um, Black Panther was fantastic.
yeah,
That was a really and it's an MCU movie, so it's like that's tough. That's hard. It's really hard. A clear, moving story that
yeah,
if not aside from just the trappings of the MCU brand, is a. I mean, I think it's a cinematic classic.
hmm,
Time will tell, but I think it has to be a classic.
yeah,
So good stuff does get made,
yeah. It
and
does.
good stuff even gets made in the sort of franchise machine.
Hmm.
That can happen. Um, just that, is it more inclusive? Is it more safe for from toxic behavior, all the bad behavior stuff we've heard about? Well, I hope so, and I think there's a lot of people. You know,
You're
oh, I
back.
dropped out. Sorry,
Yes,
sorry,
but I
Scott.
was getting glimpses of what you were saying. You were hoping that the industry was a more safe place to work, that we were
Yeah, I
telling
hope
better
so.
stories. Yeah, that
Yeah.
really leads us well to the last question that I always ask, which is the get wiser moment, which is it.
Oh dear.
Oh no, and that is
Nothing you've said has been wise enough yet. So We need to get wiser. We need to amp up the
It's a
wisdom.
branding thing. It has to do with somebody's last name, I think.
I like it.
But
Yeah, I like it.
so the question is, if my goal is to get the highest clarity, the highest potency of truth into a story, what approach would you recommend?
Michael? Oh, my goal.
My goal, yeah.
I thought you said Michael like we were taking a question from the chat or something.
Oh.
Okay, say again. If your goal,
Is to
well,
get
that is your goal.
That is my goal.
Okay, so let's get clear on that first. That is your
See,
goal.
this is Chris being a good educator. Okay, so
right.
Yeah.
Is to get
the highest potency of truth into a story. Something that when you see it, it rocks your world, it elevates you. It moves you to a higher plane of existence, yeah.
And I promise I'm not trying to be difficult or vague.
No, you're
but
being awesome.
What do we mean by truth?
That is a hard thing to define, right? Because it's a definition that has gotten really there's various definitions of it. In my case, I would just say that I want to give people the experience I had when I watched Sunset Boulevard, where I watched that film. I sat down with my wife and I said, I need to make real changes, right, in my life, right? That's the result I'm looking for, where it opens up your mind to truth.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that was, Billy Wilder has this uncanny ability vis-a-vis thematic focus, which is the case with most of his movies.
Yeah.
And disarming honesty. Honesty. And I think you have to be disarmingly honest, and that means having something to say, but that thing you have to say is disarmingly honest. And that you have to be laser focused on delivering that and only that. Dramatizing, not delivering. You can deliver just through having a character stand up and say it, and it's doesn't work. But dramatizing that thematic idea and only that, and do not go off course. Yeah.
Even it seems fun, don't go off course. Yeah.
Well, I was just recently watched through. I did a rewatch of The Office, the U.S. American Office, and everybody, I think correctly criticizes those last few seasons, and those seasons have their moments, but there are some stretches that are not good. They're really rough. Like, they really lose their way. And again, this is the thing. When I say lose their way, still, that staff of writers and those actors, it's like their talented. Worst day is still incredible. It's like, I'm talking about compared to Billy Wilder, right? I'm talking about compared to the best episodes of the absolute best episodes of The Office ever made, and then everybody has a bad episode every now and then, but then you have the sense of losing their way. When I say that, I'm talking about throughout, there's just these long stretches. The majority of whatever it is, season 9 or 8 or whatever it is, where you're just like, what is happening? It just doesn't seem like anybody has any idea what's going on, and we're just jumping the shark left and right, and it just gets really wobbly. That's more what I'm talking about. Anyway, I think one of the many, many problems in the late seasons of The Office is that Ed Helms was so famous. And so they put Andy in this, in the leading role, and Andy was I think it's arguable that Andy was the least resolute character in the entire main cast. He comes onto the show and he's this sort of bro-y, like play the LAN parties and all this kind of guy. Then they have this sort of anger management thing, and then he's sort of this, he just gets taken advantage of by Angela for so long, and he's sort of just strung along with that whole thing. Andy is at his best when he's the Cornell guy. He's the a cappella nerd from Cornell.
Yeah.
And that's really Andy at his best, in my opinion, anyway. And he works like that as a flavoring, not as the main course, but as a spice that you throw into the recipe.
Yeah.
And all of those ingredients work together. And then when you all of a sudden say, now I like this burger. Oh, this burger has ketchup on it. I think I'm going to take ketchup and put it on the bun, and now I'm going to have a ketchup sandwich. That'll be delicious, right? And that's what happens.
Yeah.
So when I say thematic focus, you cannot deviate, and you have to be very careful not to let external factors turn your burger into a ketchup sandwich, right? To affect it. And so I think, it's, does this choice clarify my point further? Does it make it clearer? And when I say clear, I can mean mostly I mean emotionally
Potent. Yeah.
Is it emotionally clearer?
Yeah.
Is the truth that I'm trying to convey here emotionally clearer? And I think that one choice to just focus on that thematic message. And when I say theme, I'm not talking about, oh, it's this, we have themes of loss and heartbreak, and no, the theme is I'll take another Billy Wilder movie, Double Indemnity, that you can't escape the prison of your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The waiting on things to do. It's like, here's a shot with a guy who's just having to wait on things to do, and even this or doing things while he's waiting, right? So he's just idly kind of, wandering around the lobby area of the house, and yet even these, throwaway things he's doing are thematically focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this can be hard to do, I'm finding, especially as you pitch to different executives, and every company's different. But I think the better you know your story, the better you'll be able to make sure that comes through.
I've been reading this. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Were you? I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I'd love to hear you.
I've been reading Maurice White's memoir.
Mm-hmm.
He's the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, for those folks that don't know. And it's very insightful, full of a lot of great quotes. But this isn't a quote, but he says this. He sort of implies that. Basically, he says, his vision for Earth, Wind, and Fire was so clear that someone could have shaken him awake at 3 a.m. and he still would have been able to provide in that instance, he could have provided a clear, succinct explanation of his vision for the band. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that is how well we need to know our project pitch. Mm-hmm. We have to know it that well. Somebody could shake you awake at 3 a.m. and you could immediately deliver a clear, succinct articulation of the vision.
Yeah. Well, the reason for that is you're going to get you're going to get into the executive meeting, and they're going to start asking you questions, and you're going to end up saying things out of order.
Well, yeah. Or you just realize how that seemed fully baked, but we've all had that experience, right? You just realize, oh, wow, this is nowhere near as resolute as I thought it was.
Yeah.
There's this thing Joseph Albers talks about, which is maximal theme, minimal effort. So the idea being, but you get maximal theme, minimal effort. You get that blend by way of maximal mental effort.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to think through it, and thinking could be writing, taking notes, research, all these things, but you have to work it out and it's so much hard mental work.
It is.
You have to work it out so clearly, and you put in all this time so that when you go to communicate it, you can communicate it in just a few words. You can communicate it in just a few images. It requires minimal effort to convey this, but you convey maximal thematic clarity with, in 2 hours. For example, take Double Indemnity or any other, really great thematically focused movie. Wizard of Oz,
And if you're going to spend millions of dollars, or the equivalent of millions of dollars, and in Wizard of Oz's case, a terribly difficult production,
Right.
If you're going to go through that kind of thing to make a film, the story better be worth it. I can't even begin. We don't even have time for me to go into what I've been doing on my current project. It has been bending over backward and tying myself in a knot, but it's been very rewarding, And the things that you learn by putting in that sort of effort are golden, you know?
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll learn the right lessons and take the right lessons along with us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But anyway, this has been a wonderful interview. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we wrap up?
I just want to keep chatting.
I know.
Keep chatting with Scott.
We could just keep going on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thank you. Thank you for sharing this time.
Yeah, thank you.
This is nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
And everybody, check the show notes. Check out Chris's course. Anybody, no matter where you are in your career, even if you think you have it figured out, it will be useful. It was useful for me. I have mentioned it to people on the Livecast before. There was a director, I don't know if our audience remembers, but he was pitching his project on, and then I shared the lessons from Chris's course because I just read them that morning. And it got that director actually thinking, do I really want to do this? He really started to get self-reflective and saying, you know, maybe this isn't really what I want to do with my life.
Right.
You know, I still love animation, but maybe it's not being the creator of the content or the originator of the idea. And that's okay. That's completely okay. Yeah. And so that course is brilliant. Please go through that, and it'll help you find your way, not only temporarily, but hopefully in an evergreen fashion.
Yeah, that's kind of you to say. It's encouraging to hear that was because no matter where this director lands, it's either their resolve is strengthened, or they realize, oh, I want to be the hype man, you know, or I want to play a supporting role. I just want to do the color scripts and be the art director. I don't want to you know, direct the thing, and the movie will be better if I do this job really well, or whatever it is, you know. But yeah, that course, again, it's called You're a Better Artist Than You Think, and it's at howtobecomeaprofessionalartist.com. Howtobecomeaprofessionalartist.com.
Check that out. And I don't know that you're open for enrollment in the Clockwork Heart.
Soon
He's opening for enrollment. Please check that out. If you're having any struggles, or you really want to know a step-by-step way to be able, not step-by-step exactly, but to be able to finish your passion project. That's the point of the course. And it's very dynamic. It's constantly growing and shifting according to the students, as you've heard in this course. So please check that out and become a part of this wonderful community. Oatley Academy just has a great place, burning place in all of our hearts, those of us who've been involved. So thank you, Chris, again, for being on the show. Please check out his stuff. And until next time, I hope we all get a little wiser. Thank you for watching the Directing Animation Livecast, hosted by Scott Weiser, audio version edited by Kira Horowitz, copyright Scott Weiser LLC 2022. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and ring that notification bell.